You know, I'm gonna be absolutely honest, I am excited for 2022. I don't have a whole lot going on in my life except YouTube, but boy am I looking forward to 2022 because one, that is hopefully when 83 is gonna get released, and two, this is when IGI Origins is most likely gonna be released. And the thing is, right, no one tells me about these games. Like IGI Origins and same with 83 were announced back in 2019, and I didn't hear about them until like someone told me about them. And you know, this also includes Warzone. No one told me that Warzone is Call of Duty and that it's free. No one told me that. Completely surprised, and I just made this revelation like yesterday. Okay, but in all seriousness, Antimatter Games is working on another game called IGI Origins, and you know, if you're like me and have no idea what IGI even is, it's actually a very old first-person stealth shooter, and in the gameplay that you're seeing, it's IGI 2. I couldn't get the first one like anywhere, and I've never played the game before, so this is probably the worst gameplay you're ever going to see from me, because the controls are so freaking weird. Like if you press V, he does like a freaking 180 or 360, and I'm like, I'm just pressing this button, I'm just helicoptering around, and then I forgot how to like stand up, because it's like you press control or like the crouch key, and you just keep going lower and lower, and then you can't go back up. So I'm like, okay, how do I stand back up? It's like, okay, this has nothing to do with the video, but what I'm trying to say is this game is made by the same people who are working on 83, as well as the people who have made, you know, probably one of my favorite games, as well as your favorite game, Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. And you know, if I'm gonna be completely honest, my first impressions when watching the trailer and looking at the screenshots, I was like, holy shit, is this like new screenshots from the game 83? I had no idea that IGI Origins was like its completely own thing. But I mean, you know, they have very similar aesthetics going on, considering they're set during the same time frame, which is the 1980s. And you know, one thing that I'm excited, oh, my voice just died for a second, but you know, one thing that I'm very excited for both of these games, for instance, is the soundtrack. Now, people want to see the guns, they want to see the tanks, I want to see the tanks, but I want to hear what soundtrack that these games are going to have, because you know, Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, it's got a good soundtrack, and you know, I assume they spent, you know, a little bit of money, you know, toss some money at the game, and they managed to get Running Through the Jungle playing, and I'm just curious to see what songs they're going to have for IGI Origins as well as 83. But staying on topic of IGI Origins, this game is a prequel to the game Project IGI, which is the first IGI game. I need to have probably a counter that says how many times I say IGI, but anyways, turns out IGI stands for the Institute of Global Intelligence, but you play as this guy called Michael King, or codenamed Regent. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's just a normal word, I just can't English, but he is an ex-SAS soldier recruited by MI6 to conduct covert global missions to target a threat with war in those sites. And let's be honest, it's the Russians. Don't need to do this all mysterious thing. We know it's the Russians. Oh, and maybe it isn't. Maybe there's gonna be a plot twist and it's gonna be the fucking Polish people. But I mean, a real interesting thing is you have an arsenal of weapons and you're able to plan your approach. And if I'm gonna be completely honest, right, when I read this, I thought of the Hitman games. Now, the only Hitman I've played is Hitman Contracts, because that's my childhood game. And whenever I play those games, I always go guns blazing, because sometimes I'd start the mission off stealthily, right? But I die and have to do it all over again. And I'm just like, no, this shit. I'm gonna kill each and every one of you for making me have to redo this mission. And this includes civilians. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but in Hitman Contracts, there's this mission where, you know, you have to go into a slaughterhouse and it's sort of like a nightclub. But I just get frustrated because I kept on dying. So I enabled cheat codes and I just got out fucking machine guns and I went in there guns blazing. Okay, that sounds borderline concerning. But I mean, even when I was playing IGI 2, it felt very similar. But I mean, you know, that's just my interpretation so far of playing IGI 2, as well as, you know, comparing it to the Hitman games. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my perception, which admittingly I have a skewed perception of reality sometimes, but anyways. Now, Antimatter Games, they do this thing called a developer dispatch, and in this video, right, we see results of a survey that they conducted, and over 90% of the people believe that storyline is important, which is good, because it turns out some of the actions, right, that we do basically make us question who the true bad guys are, and, you know, maybe it's the Russians that are the bad guys, or maybe it's the Queen pulling the strings and making you do some evil shit, which is quite funny considering that Queen Elizabeth II is, you know, this sweet, lovely old lady, and who is, you know, probably hell-bent on world domination and wants to get all her colonies back, but that's a bit of a stretch. But, you know, I like this sort of mysterious sort of storyline that they're gonna go with, how, like, oh, who are the true bad guys? Are we actually the bad guys? But, you know, overall, it sounds good. I personally aren't a fan of stealth-based games, but I genuinely believe that this game game can turn my opinion around. Now the thing is, we have a couple of screenshots and I can see the MI24 Hind. Like, I didn't even need to read anything. Once I saw this screenshot, I instantly added it to my wish list, like no questions about it. But you know, it's very dark and has a mysterious vibe to it. In the last screenshot, we can see what I assume is the protagonist looking over a board, you know, with a, which could perhaps be sort of like a pre-mission prep, like how, you know, you can select your gear or the approach that you want to take. Because I assume, this is my assumption, that maybe you can sort of like, you know how in like GTA 5 you can sort of like plan out the heist, like maybe you could do this in this game. I'm not raising any expectations. This is how I perceive this screenshot, basically, where you can select your gear and basically a plan of attack. And you know, the thing is, for the people who grew up with this game, they definitely are happy about this, and you know, I don't blame them. Imagine getting your favorite early 2000s video game and basically making a prequel to it, as well as, I'd say, revive it, you know, have it with updated graphics, a new storyline, basically expanding on the lore of this universe, I assume. And you know, let's say if they were to get Delta Force Black Hawk Down, you know, it isn't just a game that I like, it's something that I associate, you know, with a good time in my life. And I'm sure that, you know, this applies to a lot of people who played IGI back in the early 2000s. This also has, you know, maybe get, you know, the IGI games as well. I couldn't get IGI 1, like I said. I used every method possible. I ended up getting a virus, so that was great. But I did manage to get the second game. And, you know, to be absolutely honest, I had a great time playing it, even though I found it very frustrating. But, you know, moral of the story, this game looks sexy, and I genuinely can't wait to see how it develops. But anyways, I'm gonna end today's video there. I hope you guys did enjoy it, because if you did, please do consider leaving a like, subscribing, sharing the video with your friends. Anyways, my name is Tantu, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.